A man and his vinyl, and listening to him and his friends talk about him. There's nothing sexier. It's a badass podcast called On and Off the Records. When they bring down the house, it makes me lose my blouse. It's time for On and Off the Records.
Hey, and this time I have 1/3 of my podcast thruple, Keefy from the Glacially musical Pouredcast and the legendary and always iconic Ghost Cult magazine. So, Keefy, welcome.
What's up, homie? I don't know about legendary and iconic. That's amazing, but
I use those on purpose, by the way.
yeah, of course. I get that subtle joke, and Glacially musical listeners will get that. Thanks for having me back. I always love these. It's a pleasure and a thrill to work with you on your podcast. You've been such a big addition to Glacially musical and to Ghost Cold Man. Thank you.
Man, I always appreciate it. I have loved being a part of the Glacially musical forecast family now, because it was interesting for those who don't know, which I'm sure they do, because you guys all probably listen to the same shit, is that I've been made a permanent thruple member of these guys on the podcast. I couldn't be happier. Great guys, great topics. We always have a good time, and I'm just super glad that they're going to be willing to stretch themselves a little thinner also and do this whenever they can. So it's going to be cool, man. So today we're talking about Now and Zen by Robert Plant. So, Keefy, before we get started, tell me about your memory of Now and Zen.
So
year's 1987, 1988,
early 88. So I'm in high school at Fiorello H. LaGuardia High School, the performing arts. I had just lost my dad, and winter was the winter of my discontent was heavy, and music was my refuge, right? And often mentioned, my best friend in the world is Curtis Dunlap. He comes up a lot on Glacially Musical. We used to play music together as kids. We continue to have a bromance forever. I adore him. Huge Zeppelin fans together, and other things too. We played Metallica covers and stuff together. We learned to play music together. Hendrix, Cream, Living Color, all the things. And so, so many, and Zeppelin, a lot of Zeppelin. So, some of my, even though he's very humble and downplay himself, he's innately musically gifted, where I always felt like I have a little bit of talent and I'm a huge overachiever and a hard worker, right? A lot of perspiration and inspiration. But Zeppelin, right? And Zeppelin is huge, a huge planet in my solar system, right? And the 80s were the decade after, Bonham had died and Coda came out, which I love, and I adore all the Zeppelin stuff. I often say, if Zeppelin had, even with all the things you want to say negatively about them that the people like to harp on and focus on, I think if Zeppelin had quit after Zeppelin 2, they still would have been one of the greatest, if not the greatest band ever in rock.
Absolutely.
Just on sheer skill and what they accomplished on those couple of records that are hardly original and mostly interpolated and covered, and snippets of things and cleverness and just pure rock fury and brilliance and talent. And then they went on to do like Zeppelin 3 and Zoso and House of the Holy and Physical Graffiti and Presence in the Outdoor, a whole unfuckwithable run of varied, different styles of music and things that people have still never achieved. They when somebody does something that sounds like Kashmir, it's Kashmir-like, right?
Absolutely.
There's plenty of people, jazz musicians have used, Arabian and Indian scales and different tunings and things like that. Certainly some things Zeppelin did, they perfected on other ideas. They didn't invent themselves. So Plant is a huge, especially in my teenage years when I had a super high voice, Plant is, one of my North Stars as a vocalist. And we already did an early run of the Robert Plant solo records on an earlier Glacially musical series years ago. So we did Pictures at 11 and Pictures in Exhibition and things like that and all these things. And
Oh, I need to go back and hear that, man.
Really
'Cause, yeah.
delve deep on these things, and a lot of the Plant solo stuff really, in a lot of ways, was groundbreaking and for the early 80s, and then became kind of like a staple. Like Phil Collins co-wrote some of Plant's solo records and played drums on them because he wanted to. He was ended up playing at Live Aid, right, with Zeppelin.
That was a whole shit show
a
right
whole
there.
thing. Well, not because of Phil, but I
No,
understand.
no. I mean, just logistics and the fact that he was traveling from two.
Well, he didn't. He wanted to do that. That was a publicity stunt. But like, Philip was a brilliant drummer, right? Like, one of the best drummers of his time. Just even if he had never become a big solo pop star, and so we had really examined those things and talked about some of these records already. But I was very excited about Now and Zen. I think I was kind of hot and cold on the Plant solo stuff. First record is great. Other records are so-so with some great tracks. There's definitely a lot of quality. You could see that he was trying really hard, to not be tropey of the time. So 80s, new wave, post-punk, goth. He didn't want to do those things. He did end up being kind of a rock adjacent to new wave, because how could you not in that time? And also, he set the pace for some of that stuff himself with his couple of first solo records. But also, he was sort of fighting against this image of Robert, right? He was trying hard not to be Robert Plant. I love that you mentioned in Glacially Musical last week when you showed the Now and Zen record, because we didn't get to do our episode, and I am sorry. If for some reason my computer shits the bed, just hang out, pause the recording. I'll come right back.
That's fine.
It has happened. It's still getting a couple of little. Yeah, I'm on Windows 11. It's still a little cranky, the computer, but overall it's working pretty well.
Oh yeah, no worries.
It's fast as fuck right now, which is great.
Good,
but
good.
There's still some other issues that I have to work out. But you were like, "Oh, Robert looks like he's coming. Like, he is always coming. He's Robert Plant.
Always.
He's a living engorged peen." But he's the embodiment of peni. And so all peni everywhere. And so, I was very excited about the prospect of Now and Zen. And he kind of approached this record with a partially new band. And I think that's part of the reason why Now and Zen and Manic Nirvana kind of are really apart from Shaken and Stirred and those earlier records.
Oh, 100%.
Shaken and Stirred, I seem to remember, is bad and is not a good record. It's actually a mostly not great record.
Yeah, Shaken and Stirred was one of those that was like, he had that. What was the name of that? It was like Hip to Who or something like that. I
just trying to,
like, it was just. Actually, I'm looking at the track. Yes, Hip to Who.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah. And again, could you think about every great 70s person that has achieved something? They're fighting against that the rest of their life, just like all the bands we like and all the artists we like are compared to their pinnacle. So it's really hard to fight against that when you want to do something else. I don't love Robert's stuff the last bunch of decades. I think it's great. He's become a wonderful aged singer. I love the stuff with Alison Krauss, but like, I don't sit around and listen to it. It's just not for me.
Yeah.
So that's it. I was very excited when the first singles came out. I don't know if you know this fact, and I don't want to steal your thunder because
please, this is what this is about, man.
Do you know that that Ship of Fools was in the final episode of Miami Vice because Michael Mann was a huge Zeppelin fan, and Robert.
I did know that, actually.
Yeah. And so that's
and there was another.
Yeah,
there was another song that was used in another episode of Miami Vice.
A few Robert solo songs.
Yes,
and Michael Mann used rock music. Obviously, In the Air Tonight is the #1 thing. Jan Hammer, Pat Metheny, Eric Clapton. These people all popped up during Miami Vice's run.
Oh yeah,
in their music, in the episodes, in incidental music for television, which had not really been done much. Theme songs for sure, but not actual dramatic cue music, which is really like what a statement that was.
Right.
I was excited for this record, to say the least.
And it's funny because I love that, and thank you for sharing that, by the way, because it's always like, this is one of the reasons why I wanted to do this series, was because for those of you listening, like Keith, Nick, and myself, we have like we have a thruple chat that literally just has started since, at least in my inbox, started from the time I did a guest appearance on their episode, and it's still going now. I have never deleted it. And it is every day just the most random ADHD shit you could imagine. Three music freaks talking about. But I love it because one of the things we always talk about is that when we get to talking about an album, is that we can't just talk about it. Like it's all encompassing. Like what did it mean to us? Well, like why was it important to us? And so this is why I wanted to do this, because there's so many albums in my lifetime, for better or for worse, that mean something to me. But I love hearing how that reaction comes from other people as well. So to hear your story about this, I love that, because it reminds me that albums and music can be important to a lot of people, but everyone has their own story with it. And I think that's the cool thing to be told, is the stories. But I mean, so like I remember when it came out. So I mean, I started listening to Zeppelin like around 85, 86. It was like a couple of years after I was like knee deep in my metal, you know, glam rock phase, and I started kind of branching off to older groups, Pink Floyd, Led Zeppelin, AC/DC, Kiss, the older, who still weren't that old, but the older ones. And Zeppelin was a band I was obsessed with, and the obsession didn't last long, but the love for certain Zeppelin albums never feigned, And then about the time 1988 hit was when I like to say that at this point I was pretty seasoned for a young person. I was, let's see, I was I was 15, I think. Let me see, 17, 83. I was 16. So I was 16. I'm terrible at math, by the way. But anyway, however old I was, at that point, I'd been listening to this kind of music for long enough that I was familiar with like bands, outputs and solo outputs and this, that, and the other. And all I really was familiar with Plant up to this point was the fact that Pictures at 11 was kind of okay, that Shaken and Stirred was absolutely horrific, and that he was coming out with Now and Zen. And at that point, I didn't know what to expect, but I was more adventurous than I had been before. And I think I had only heard Tall Cool One when I picked the album up. And even then, I was a little on the fence about it, but I just remember thinking it was fun, but that it wasn't trying to be Led Zeppelin. And then when I picked up the album and really listened to it, like I just fell in love with it, like song after song. I just thought, this is just, for someone who is so known for being the vocalist and songwriter, or lyricist, I should say, for Led Zeppelin. He had no problem falling into something that was so un-Led Zeppelin that it was ridiculous. Like nothing, there's hints of things throughout those solo albums leading up to this one that you could tell were Zeppelin-y, but he was so far out from it. Like I think you said that he was like working so hard to remove himself. Like he's like, I don't want to be called a Zeppelin clone. I don't want to be told that I can't do anything that's not Zeppelin. So much so that he did not perform any Led Zeppelin songs on any of his tours until this tour, which was the Nonstop Go tour.
45 years later.
Seriously.
And a little bit and like Live Aid and Freddie Mercury and a few occasional things, now obviously Page and Plant, a lot of Zeppelin in the Unplugged, a lot of Zeppelin in the Page and Plant show, which I have some other stories about. Maybe they're appropriate, maybe they're not. Let me ask you a quick question. I don't want to hijack your show.
No hijacking at all.
I have a curiosity. So, because you're a little younger than me,
mm-hmm.
and you came in a little later than me, and I was kind of a little boy when Zeppelin was happening, and I saw everything through the gaze of my brother, who was 10 years older than me and was living this shit like
Right.
You could not believe, and I was so jealous, but inspired also. So, like you hear Zeppelin, and then you hear all the 80s heavy metal that you love. If you've read, please read Southeast of Heaven by Don, the book, and link in Don's descriptions and link trees and whatever. And so buy it off Amazon. And, like, so you hear Zeppelin and you
Mhm.
understand where everything came from. I know that like one of the few writers I really respect beside you in this field is Martin Popoff, and Martin Popoff is
Mm.
just calling everything now retroactively heavy metal.
Yeah.
Zeppelin, Deep
Mhm.
Purple, ACDC's heavy metal. Okay, cool. If everything is heavy metal, nothing is. But also, like, I understand it's the building blocks, it's the proto. But
Right.
I don't agree as a musicologist, erstwhile musicologist, that that's fair. But what
Uh-uh.
I wanted to ask is when you then heard Kicks and Kingdom Come and Livewire by Crew, you hear the Zeppelin in them, right? You hear the next gen down, the couple of generations, half generations of other artists down, and Whitesnake is happening at the same time. And I love Coverdale,
Mhm.
and some of that stuff was unfortunate. He took a lot of punishment. Some
Oh yeah.
deserved, most
Mhm.
not. He is a
Yeah.
legendary singer by himself,
Oh yeah.
just for
Absolutely.
what he did in Deep Purple.
Mhm.
But the comparisons are hard to shake. He frosted his hair. He's doing this shit like Plant kind of
Mhm.
isms. But again, we all kind of, you just, the osmosis gets in and you just do stuff that sometimes looks like other people. So, but you know that you saw it, right? Like you saw it in real time. Here's all this huge heavy metal and hard rock that is owing everything a lot to Zeppelin, right? You felt that, right? And a lot to Plant.
Oh, 100%. I mean,
Okay,
there.
just
I
checking.
mean, like, because like I said, by '88, I'd been listening to Zeppelin pretty hardcore for about 3 years at that point. So I had all the cassettes. You know, if I didn't have them on vinyl, I had mostly cassettes at the time. Cassette, because when you're a broke kid, the deal is you get one vinyl, or you get two cassettes. So, I opted to get two cassettes, which is why I sadly only have like three Zeppelin albums in my collection right now. But the thing was that at that point I had been listening to them so much, started to kind of break off from them a little to kind of dive back into more of the hard rock metal that was kind of coming out. Never like threw shade to them, but they just became a little less important to me, to the point though that as I started to discover other bands, I started to hear things like, oh wait, that's very Zeppelin-y, like Kingdom Come is the biggest one I can think of. And I will die on a fucking hill for Lenny Wolf, by the way, because he was like, yeah, those guys had one song that sounded like three Zeppelin songs. Like, I mean, they had one song that sounded like one Zeppelin song. But then they also had 5 or 6 songs that sounded like a band heavily influenced by Zeppelin. And I think that when I heard something like that, they were getting the crap taken out of them constantly. And even as a kid, I just remember thinking, like, I wish I could be so good of a musician that people would say, "You're ripping off Led Zeppelin note for note." Do you know what I mean? And I'm like, there's like worse, there's worse things that can be said. But as I did get older and started to see bands and hear bands, and especially more so in the hard rock, yeah, I like to use the term hard rock. I don't like to use hair metal, glam metal, things like that. I do that as a descriptive for people who don't know too much about those genres. But I always do like hard rock and metal, or sleaze metal, whatever. But more so in those hard rock bands, I started to see and hear more Zeppelin. Like I heard it in the Cure, in the Cult. I heard it in bands like Tora Tora. I heard it in, even at times like LA Guns. Like those bands who were those ages, where they were old enough to be like 10 or 12 years old when Zeppelin was playing. So if it wasn't Kiss or Zeppelin, it was both. So it's impossible to have a band that was coming out in the 80s who were in their 20s at this point that weren't going to have something that was, copped from Zeppelin, and I don't know. I always thought it was cool, but I wish I would have had more knowledge of what those guys thought of some of these bands. Now I do remember an interview with Jimmy Page, and someone was asking him about what he thought about Kingdom Come, and he said, "Well," he's being very polite. Jimmy Page is always. He's like, "Well, they're very talented bands, uh, great players." He goes, "But that song "Get It On" was a little too close." And I was just like, "Well, I mean, I get it. I did appreciate the fact that even a band like that, they didn't let it hamper them, but that they were proud to be called. You know, I interviewed Lenny Wolf about 8 or 9 years ago, and it was when he was still putting out Kingdom Come music with his Kingdom Come lineup that had been around for years already, just over in Europe. And one of the questions I was asking him about that legendary mishap, supposedly it got him into trouble, where he was like, I've never even heard of Led Zeppelin. Do you remember this quote? Yeah. So one of the things he told me that I thought was great was he said that that's one of those stories where like everybody says they were there and heard it. He's like, but nobody was backstage when that actually happened. He was like, it was actually in an interview room with just him and like a journalist and like a handful of other people, from the band or people's, hangers-ons or whatever. And he said that they were doing the interview and the guitar player, Danny Stagg, was sitting across the room. And the journalist said something about sounding like Led Zeppelin. And Danny Stagg said, who? Led Zeppelin? Never heard him. And then everyone started laughing. That became the sound bit that destroyed that band, Right
But, on. Oh, nice call out to Tora Tora, underrated. I loved LA Guns for a time. It's weird how Tracy became like one of the better normal guys out of that whole crew of people, right? Like somehow a not piece of shit later in his life. Also Great White, right? So like, okay,
Great White.
Before they started doing the covers,
mm-hmm.
before they knew they were clones of Zeppelin with a little. See, I like saying glam rock and hair metal because somewhere Steve Rachel from Tup is getting a pain in his scrotum, and I'm like a voodoo doll. Hair metal, glam metal, sleaze metal, hair metal, on purpose. But also, like as a New Yorker, that's what we just referred to all West Coast rock.
We did too, yeah.
And we felt like, well, Kiss was first, and Van Halen was first, and Quiet Riot was first, and then everybody else kind of bit their style. Because again, growing up in New York, where everything was like becoming very pop and hip hop based around me, while I had this huge education in rock and roll and jazz and early heavy metal, if you copied someone too closely, you were biting their style, and it was forbidden. And for a long time, rap was really built on early hip hop was built on originality and chops, and then it became about like not even a Zeppelin-y nod to what and I know is cool. It was like straight robbing, and I'm not talking about sampling, but straight up copying, and robbing, which we got
right, yeah,
rhyming and stealing, to quote the Beastie.
That's it.
But for our upcoming episode on the Beastie Boys, but Great White didn't get enough credit when they were trying to be original, and then they just went all the way into the needle in the red, right?
Oh, yeah.
Zeppelin. Like, they couldn't fucking help it. Mm-hmm. And it's no shit. Look, like, I feel bad. This guy just died, right?
Jack Russell.
Jack Russell just died, right? And he had a really tough end of his life with medical problems.
He had dementia.
Yeah, like, really bad. Like, really, really bad. So, like, my heart goes out to his family. I don't think he was a terrible person. No. And they absolutely got butchered. And they got butchered after the MTV Unplugged, especially. And Babe, I'm Gonna Leave You. And we're doing Zeppelin better than Zeppelin did. No, you're fucking not. Yeah. But, again, I think if you got asked about that shit every single fucking day, you would lose your mind and start kind of, like, pushing back on that. And, look, you and I know, there's, probably, 25, 35, 40 years ago, there was like maybe 4 dozen good journalists in the whole world for rock and metal. Right. And now there's about 7. Yeah, and 2 of them are on this podcast. And 5 of them are elsewhere in the world. So, pal, like I'm sympathetic more than I used to be. I used to be like, fuck those guys for robbing from my band that I love. Now I'm just like, you know what, man? Of course they were influenced by Led Zeppelin. Of course they copied note for note. Of course. Because Paul Stanley, steal a diamond. Yeah. You want to be great, steal diamonds. Don't steal coal, right? He knew what he was saying, to paraphrase him badly. Speaking of thieves, I'm Gene Simmons. I invented everything.
Now it's going to cost you to use the word everything, because I just...
Black and Blue never gets mentioned in these conversations. That's because they weren't very good, bro.
No, they were terrible.
Not very good.
They were terrible.
They're not. I don't think they were terrible. They're just not the best. They're just average. And these guys are going to be the next Guns N' Roses. No, they're not. There's only one Axl and Slash, bro.
He wanted to. He tried to push Silent Rage there for a while too, like they were going to be something big.
And the same thing with Wendy and Ronnie and Rough Cut. Rough Cut was terrible, not a good band.
And Riot also.
And Riot also not a good band. Sorry, everybody who loves them. They're just not that. They're not terrible or the worst. They're not that competent either.
Yeah.
I continue. Please, I digress. Please continue on.
No, and if you're listening and you don't agree with this, like start your own fucking podcast, you know. So anyway, that's why
jump in the comments and be thoughtful about your defense of these terrible, horrible, no talent ass fucking bands, and maybe we'll be proven wrong if you have a thoughtful retort.
Yes, I mean, come on, jump in.
I wish, please, someone.
Yeah, right.
All I get on my YouTube, this fat beardo fuck who wears a vest. Fuck this guy. He doesn't know shit. Okay, cool. What do you know? What's your channel like? Oh, nothing. That's right.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Or you know what? Put it up, man. Be a guest. Come on up and talk to us. We'll see what you got. You know.
I don't want to entertain these fools.
Nah, man. This is our time to shine, man. Not those fucking losers.
My time to shine.
My time.
Like Cletus from The Simpsons. Yeah. I absolutely can't do it. It's idiot proof. Continue.
All right, so moving forward, I did a couple of cool little fun little research topics here about this year that the album was released, and this was kind of fun. I know it's kind of cliche, but I'm gonna do it anyway. But gas was 96 cents a gallon, not $96. 96 cents a gallon. A movie ticket was $4. Milk was $2 a gallon. You could get a house for $110,000, and a Motorola Dynatac cell phone was $2,500. And yeah. Put that in your pipe and smoke it. And interesting enough, albums released this year. We had Jane's Addiction, Nothing's Shocking. We had Metallica and Justice for All. David Lee Roth and Van Halen both put out albums the same year. Skyscraper and OD812. Queensryche put out Operation Mindcrime. Soundgarden put out Ultra Mega OK. Public Enemy put out It Takes a Nation of Millions. Slayer did South of Heaven. Danzig, and oddly, Jimmy Page Outrider came out the same year, which was super interesting because that's a very hard rock metal
it's list. A very Led Zeppelin-y record with John Miles, rest in power, who passed away a while back, I think, and like a very hard rock record. Like it's actually like Page has never tried not to be Jimmy Page ever. Mm-hmm. Even Death Wish and things like that is still Zeppelin-esque in ways. His soloing and certain things he's done and produced other bands that kind of were, John Paul Jones, Diamond Dallas, like Dem Crooked Vultures. I can do what I know how to do, but I can also do other things. Right. And Robert until this point is like, no. And then I think he finally was like, okay, I've tried everything else. I guess I'm going to be me for a little while. I'm going to go back to doing what I know and do it well. And I love that little recap of the year. I think about, like those brick phones and, gas wasn't a thing for me because we didn't drive in the city.
Yeah, I didn't either.
The New York City subway system when I was going to high school was 75 cents a train fare. I believe now it's 3 something.
It was like $3 or $5 or something.
You were just there. So I was there a year and a half ago and it was like $2.95. So I think it went up again in 2025, so it's like 3 something per fare.
That's
unless
about
you get
right.
Like a weekly pass or you get discounts for a weekly or a monthly pass.
Yeah, but it was such an interesting year. Yeah, that there was Iron Maiden, Seventh Son was released.
Hell yeah!
Rest for the Wicked, Poison, Open Up and Say Out. Like this is a very. I mean, we're talking like this is the kind of 2 years in. I would say maybe a year at least, where hard rock and metal was like dominating.
Also, and Justice for All. Also, unfortunately, So Far So Good, So What? The best written Megadeth record, the terrible recording.
Oh my gosh!
Also, whatchamacallit by Anthrax with Antisocial being a big single, but the rest of the record is State of Euphoria.
State of Euphoria.
They had 10 days to record because they booked the tour. They got bought on for the Iron Maiden tour, and they had 10 days to lay a whole album down.
Great fucking tour, though. Great fucking tour. I saw that the Headbangers Ball tour with it was them, Halloween, and Exodus.
I didn't see him till later. Oh, I saw Anthrax, and yeah, I don't think Halloween. There was like a headline date
Yeah.
in New York City, and I saw Exodus and SOD. That was like my first metal show, and I definitely got in underage, and because I looked older than I was with my long hair and a little facial something, not much, but and then I saw Exodus and Anthrax a year later, so unfortunately, I didn't see Made until later.
Yeah, I mean, so it was a cool, obviously it was a cool year. And then like, so the details I got from this, it was recorded from October to November of 87. It was done in London. It was released on February 29th of 88, and it's got a running time of 42 minutes and 19 seconds, which is, now we're starting to kind of see the length of albums like creeping up a little higher, because I think up to this point, this was the longest Plant album. The other ones were running at like, let's see, uh, Shaken and Stirred ran at 41, and this one ran at 42. Yeah, so we're inching up as we go, but not just Plant, but across the board, bands in general. And his band was fucking fantastic, and they had some pretty interesting history to them. So we had Phil Johnston, who did keyboards and programming and co-wrote most of the album with Plant. He also was a producer who wrote for Alana Miles, who was Plant's partner for a bit. And then he also co-wrote the next two Plant albums, which would have been Manic Nirvana and what's the other one? I'm forgetting, whatever came after Manic Nirvana. Shit. Anyway, so he did those next two albums. And then Doug Boyle was the guitar player who, according
Fate
to
of Nations. Sorry.
Fate of Nations,
Kind of sounds like a Queensryche album, doesn't it?
It does. It doesn't ever sound like it's supposed to be a Plant
Warrior
album.
Soul, Fate
Warrior
of Nations, out
Fate.
now on cassette from Columbia Records.
Get the single of the first song. Yeah, dude. So interesting enough, though, Doug Boyle has not done anything like of a huge status. But he's a guitarist, is a composer, and he's worked with later incarnations of the band Caravan, which I had no idea he was even involved with. And if I remember correctly, one of the reasons why he got the gig, other than being a great guitar player, was that he wasn't a Zeppelin fan. Because Plant did not want to assemble a band that had people that were Zeppelin fanatics. And so, same with his bass player, Phil Scragg, who I can find no history on, but that dude was also not a Zeppelin fan. He was a fan of jazz and funk. And so, from what I understand, they could play, they could do the songs he wanted them to do. So he hired him. And then lastly, Chris Blackwell on the drums. He did two tours with Plant, Now and Zen, and Manic Nirvana, but he also played on Fate of the Nations.
Not that Chris Blackwell, but a different Chris Blackwell.
Yes, yeah, exactly. I
also was like, remember what? Chris Blackwell? No, he was dead.
What an unfortunate name to have.
Yeah, like it should be Chrissy or Christopher or Seaman
or Sea Dog,
anything but Chris Blackwell in England. Working with Robert Plant. Just saying, guy. Just some advice from a guy.
That is so funny. And then he also he played on the 66 to Timbuktu album, which was the one that followed Fate of Nations. But then he also co-wrote Tie Dye on the Highway, which I had no idea, because that's like probably my second favorite Plant solo song. But it was cool. And then he had a whole run of guest musicians, and Page played guitar solo on two songs. He played guitar solo on Heaven Knows, and then on Tall Cool One, which I thought was interesting with the Zeppelin samples in there. And was it you that we were talking about this either last night or earlier, about how that kind of came because the Beastie Boys had sampled Zeppelin pretty heavily like
I've
in
said
some
it
of
in the
the earlier
past.
stuff,
I've said it in the
that
past. It might have come up yesterday. Maybe it
that
was
was
Nick
kind of like
actually.
his nod to the Beastie
Yeah.
Boys.
Well, it
Like,
was not just a nod to them. It was like I'm taking it back. Like because
yeah.
Robert felt like with it, I'm in the mood and things like that. That he was an early advocate of rap and hip hop
Mhm.
because he felt like in the mood is somehow jazzy and rappy. It's not. It's poor.
No,
He
it's
has done
yacht
like
rock.
raps. He's got it's very yacht rocky. He's got some raps in some of the earlier solo
Mhm.
stuff. He tries to rap, and there's a little raps on here. But like again, you go back to the origin of true rap and hip hop, and it has its home in jazz and scat singing and just kind of band leader-ish call outs, and then later on it becomes adopted over dance music and break beats to form hip hop. But yeah, I think like there was obviously a lot of hype about Jimmy and Robert working together,
Mhm.
being in the same music, making music again. Maybe Zeppelin will reunite. Wait, they can't reunite. No Bottom. We saw how
Mhm.
badly it went at Live Aid with an untuned guitar and all this no sound check shit.
Yeah.
Again, I suspect Jimmy, much like Metallica and other people, if it's not on their terms, under all their own sterile lab-like conditions that they need, they just can't function. And I'm similar. Like you know what I'm saying? Like if it's
Yeah.
I just can't operate outside of my vacuum, and I respect that. That's a respectable. I'm not. It's not a diss. Um, but yeah. So anywho, yeah, like I think there was a lot of guitar nerd and music nerd media press talk, which is in one of your little guide things, the press notes
Mhm.
about the album, and reception and things like that. That like, oh my god, Page and Plant back together again, and maybe this sowed the seeds for Page and Plant 7 years later, right? It's possible
Yeah.
because it was a good
And
experience. Did they also perform on like the Grammys together?
so
Did they
they
do Call
actually,
to One?
so they were at the Atlantic Records anniversary
That's
concert.
right. Yep.
And for that one, that was, let's see, Plant did a solo set. Luckily, I have it. Yeah, here. Plant did a solo set that night where he did, um, which by the way, a foreigner also performed live on the Atlantic
Oh
Records
God, is this also a
40th
foreigner
anniversary.
podcast? Jesus, we already have one foreigner unintentional foreigner podcast.
Friends of the show, foreigner, like, it's like, but though, so Plant did, let's see, what did he do? He did Heaven Knows, Ship of Fools, and Tall Cool One, but then they did like a Zeppelin like reunion, which was kind of ill-fated, unfortunately. It was Jonesy, Page, Plant, and then Jason Bonham, and they did Cashmere, Heartbreaker, Whole Lot of Love, Misty, Mountain Hop, and Stairway to Heaven. And
So
from what
Jason
I
is like 20 something years old, right? He's
he
like 22 years old in 1990, 91, because he's like 50 something now, right? He's all like my age or a little
he's like
older.
our age. Yeah, he's
Yeah.
not much older than us,
So
if
he
not the
was a
same
young
age.
kid. It was like he already had Bonham, which I had seen live, not great, by the way. And
Yeah, I did.
another
Yeah.
Zeppelin clone, which is unfortunate.
I tell you
Just
what, though,
unfortunate that singer was absolute, like, I don't want to say complete trash, like two small trash bags you take out with like last night's dinner and eggs and steak, like
you know what it is?
the
Is he's
foam that a chicken comes in, the foam with the cellophane from the
yeah,
supermarket. So that
he's
that guy, he's not a full trash bag, but he's like a half a trash bag as a singer.
you know what he is? He's the to-go container that has the takeout Chinese that you forgot about like 5 nights ago, and you open it up and you're like, do I want to chance this? No, not really. Then he just dumped it. Like I feel like he was like exactly that. Like, and I saw them live, but I'll get to it because I want to talk about that too in a second. But what I thought was super interesting with this album too is even with Page making the appearance on 3 songs, it was not heavily um used in the press at all. Like it was like even on the album, like this is actually Don's copy that he bought in 1988. And like even on the album, like there's nowhere anywhere, like even on the hype sticker, I remember that said featuring Jimmy Page. Like there was nothing. Like it was nothing about it. And I didn't even know he was on the album until probably another 3 or 4 years later. Um, which I think speaks volumes about both of them, that they were not, they were still in the pocket with each other and friends enough that they were willing to collaborate and hang out and be casual musically, but not try to like monetize off of the idea that it's two fourths of Zeppelin. No, it's Page on two songs, and then later,
And
but
samples of Page
and then samples of Page.
samples of Page with Page's permission, which is probably how it was pitched to him. Like, hey, hey, man,
Hey,
hello, Jimmy.
Pagey.
Hey, Pagey, right? And hi, Robert, and that sounds lovely. That would be fun. And then like, come on and play some songs with me, but also we're gonna use these. We were so sampled for a few years, and
Yeah.
it made us so mad because we didn't understand it because we're boomers yelling in clouds. Let us also sample ourselves as like a nah.
Which is so funny to me because I feel like, and I don't know, maybe you can correct me if I'm wrong here, but like the older I get, the more versed in Zeppelin I get, because I feel like they're one of those bands that I've started deep diving on over the past like couple of years, and reading more on them. And I feel like one of the things I start to learn is that Plant was a lot more concerned with the overall integrity of like the usage of certain things. And then Page had to put his stamp on everything, but that he was very kind of aloof about a lot of things, that he was just kind of like, Robert, if you want to, he was more like about the quality of recording, the quality of production and things like that, and the quality of the writing. I think that was interesting because when you had Page go out on the Outrider tour doing like 3/4 Zeppelin songs, and then that same year you got Plant out on the road doing like half Zeppelin songs, that they were both kind of acknowledging that, okay, we've tried to kind of get away from it, but why should we just keep pushing it away if it's going to just keep coming back to us? So let's do this on our own terms. Let's pick the songs that I want to play on their each respective tours. And but this is super interesting, was that that Ship of Fools, Tall Cool One, Heaven Knows was on the Atlantic Records 40th anniversary. But then, like he said, Ship of Fools was also featured on the final 2-hour episode of Miami Vice called Free Fall.
In a real big scene, like a pivotal scene.
The pivotal scene of the whole.
It's the equivalent
series
of the Taylor Swift song in the recent Next to Last series finale and with the series finale of Miami Vice. Series finale. The most popular show of the 80s, second most popular show of the whole. Oh my God. Changed the whole landscape for television writing and things at that time, along with, a few other things. And like again,
and it cursed us with fashion.
Well, I won't deny that I had a Crockett and Tubbs outfit once, but I was always like so poor that I was like 2 years behind everything else.
So yeah, I had a pastel blue shirt. Yeah, it's okay.
I had pastel blue and pink. But I like pink. I wore pink dress shirts in my monkey suit days, and I was styling.
Dude,
clean up very well. I learned it from my dad.
We do. We try. I don't know how well I clean up though, but or if I clean up at all. But actually, one of the things I also did look into was the press on this album. And Kurt Loder in '88 said that he hailed the album as, quote, a seamless pop fusion of hard rock guitar, gorgeous computerization, and sharp, startling songcraft. And that was what I was curious to ask you, because when I was researching this, I found an interview with Robert Plant, and I actually had to transcribe this because it said Robert Plant sees Now and Zen as a positive and exciting departure from his solo career, not a Zeppelin revival. He described it as a healthy musical journey that runs on its own. And that while Now and Zen was commercially successful and even helped him revisit his Led Zeppelin past, Plant has stated that he no longer wants to be defined by that era. So it almost kind of sounds like, which is, again, one of those things where he was always a very in the moment artist, like he did this for what it was, for its time and place, but then he doesn't care to go back and try to revisit those songs or whatever, or that style. Listening back to it, if I heard this from any other band, I would say this sounds dated and corny. But for this, it sounds dated and kind of corny, but in a way that's masterful. I don't know how else to describe it.
Well, that's interesting because I think it's got a timeless quality that most of Plant's other solo work does not have. as does Manic Nirvana. This is, to me, I think John Stone coming in gave him a sensibility where he was able to make modern rock with 80s sound synthesizers and drones and programming, which he had done little of before this time, or tried to and didn't do it well. What Plant should have did is what Clapton did. Is he should have hooked up with Nathan Easton, Greg Fillinganes, and Collins and made a thing like that. Even though that would have felt like too Zeppelin-y to him, right?
Yeah.
But that's why Journeyman is so fucking good the next year. But or like a year and a half later. But I think there's some really. I've listened back to this a bunch. I got busted shoplifting the cassette. One of the first CDs I ever bought was
That's
this
the
record.
most New York thing I think I've ever heard you say.
So I went to high school. Yes, I'm from New York. I went to high school across the street from the Tower Records at Lincoln Center, no longer there. And I think it's a big Target now or something, or a Whole Foods. But I used to shoplift from there all the time. I was pretty broke and poor in the 80s and late 80s. This is a few months before I got my first bass guitar, bought for me by my mom on Mother's Day, of all things. That's the kindness my mother kind of had. But I got nabbed a few times shoplifting, and sometimes I shoplifted with money. I was already working a job at this. I think I had started working a job at this time, or right after this. I started working a job, maybe like a few months later. So I would sometimes shoplift with money in my pocket, like a fucking idiot. But sometimes it's just kind of like the criminal minded to quote
right.
Exactly. One. You just be gay, do crimes. That's what the brain goes to, unfortunately, when you're a street kid. So a latchkey kid. So got busted trying to shoplift the cassette. Got to hear the record at my friend's house. Ended up buying the CD I ended up buying the cassette, or my brother had the cassette. Listened to it a ton. Watched some of the videos they would play on MTV, this, that, and the other thing. And then also kind of what happens after is Manic Nirvana comes out right around the same time as the Led Zeppelin cassette box set.
The big orange
curated
box. Yeah.
With the crop circles.
Yeah.
And because of that, they played a ton of Now and Zen and Manic Nirvana videos and concert stuff of Page and Plant and John Paul Jones to a lesser extent all the time.
Yeah.
For there was like a Zeppelin weekend hosted by Martha Quinn. You're getting the Zeppelin box set, and Jimmy and Robert are going to get interviewed and talk about the box set.
John Paul Jones is going to smile, and
John Paul Jones is going to be mad because no one called him again. Anyway. Yeah, good shit though. Like, I love this record. I really love this record. I still love this record. I'm going to say that it's the best Robert solo record. I think it's actually better than Manic Nirvana. Has a couple of absolute bangers, but it's not as good a record as this. And I think this is a beautiful job. He really came into his own as a singer. I know that sounds crazy. I think like Cornell, Plant learned how to sing long after Zeppelin was over. Most of Led Zeppelin, he just has this phenomenal gift of a voice and some ideas 100%. Of sensibilities that he borrowed from folk and blues singers. And he really learned how to be a really nuanced, subtle singer in the 80s while he was finding himself again. And I think by going back a little, not a full embrace of Zeppelin, but there's a lot of rockabilly and rock and blues. And even when he's not doing rockabilly and blues songs, he's singing kind of rock and R&B to his approximation, similar to how The Who thinks they're doing their version of revved up R&B.
Right.
And
which is like as wide as you can get.
Yeah. And the Beatles thought they were doing R&B because, John Lennon copied a lot of stuff from Curtis Mayfield and the Impressions and things like that.
Right.
And from Marvin Gaye and Stax musicians and things like that. So, yeah, awesome. Though I love this record. I still love this record. Maybe some of it sounds a little flat now, but most of the record is great. There's some great deep cuts on here. Ship of Fools is a 10 of 10 by itself. God. Actually, now that as I get older, Tall Cool One is corny. Like, I get what he was doing.
Oh, yeah.
I think it's marginally successful. Like, I get what he was going for, and I don't love it. But I get why. Right. When I first came out, my brain was, like, exploding. Lighten up that sample. I was like, oh my God, what's happening? What's happening? Yeah. But now I'm like, nah, you didn't have to. It's like answering a bully. I'm rubber, you're glue.
It's like a diss track.
It wasn't necessary. But Ship of Fools, Like some of these songs are unbelievable, man. Like,
Oh yeah.
I mean, Ship of Fools is an unbelievably great song. Lyrically, Heaven Knows is a great song. Is a great first track. Is a
Uh-huh.
great song. Is a an 8 of a 10 if you had to rate
Yeah.
each song a number. I try not to, but like if you
Right.
do. And like I said, the deep cuts do hold up for me. I listened to this a lot the last few weeks. I was ready last week
I
musically to do.
know we had the mishap. I know.
I'm sorry, my machine shit the bed.
Yeah.
But thank
No,
you
but
for entertaining me again.
no, but so what's interesting too is the tour for this album ran. I had no idea it was this extensive. It ran from December 17th of 87 to December 23rd of 89. 115 shows.
That's a lot for him. That's a lot for the '80s, actually.
Dude,
And I want to.
that's a lot for now. I mean, I don't know.
And
I'm hard pressed to find young bands that still
was
do.
he doing arenas on the strength? See, because I know that there was like some early. Nick and I talked about this. He had done some big theaters, amphitheaters, and arenas
Mhm.
as just Robert Plant of Led Zeppelin
This was a
without
full on.
doing any Zeppelin. Imagine if you paid like $21 in 1986 to see Robert Plant, and that's a lot of money back then. That's our equivalent of like 80, $90 today. And you paid $21 on a middle class income in Des Moines, Iowa at the Des Moines Bowl or whatever the fuck to see Robert
Right,
Plant,
right.
and he's not going to do Stairway to Heaven or Black Dog, and you're run out of there mad. Even though you saw Robert Plant, which a lot of people, fucking hell yeah, but also like, what is this shit? I'm in the mood for a melody. I'm in the mood. No, I'm not in
That's
the mood at all
interesting.
for that. I'm in the mood for Black Dog and
I'm in the mood for
Communication
Black
Breakdown.
Dog, motherfucker.
Yeah, kind of, a little bit. And I think Robert took one on the chin because he was booked immediately for like arenas right as away as a solo artist at the
Yeah.
level Zeppelin was at when they stopped. And I think those tours were probably challenging and half empty. Not
Yeah.
completely empty and dead and not money making, but just not as lucrative as they thought it was going to be.
It's interesting because I'm looking at the tour stats from those years, and it looks like in 83, which would have been, I think that would have been Pictures at 11 or close to it. If that, it was, yeah, it was Pictures at 11. It looks like that he was playing mostly Europe, but doing some like, I mean, kind of modest rooms. Like he was doing Hammersmith, which, is compared to what Zeppelin was playing was like, a club kind of. He was doing a lot of theaters, like Sheffield City Hall in, he played at Leeds, Empire Theater. It doesn't look like for 83 he did a whole lot in the States, but when he did, it was all arenas and civic centers. And I'm looking at the set lists from
Most civic
83.
centers, for people out there listening, are 5 to 15,000 people per venue.
Yeah, so it, because they don't do civic centers anymore, unfortunately, because they call them now small theaters, but it used to be what? It used to be arenas, then civic centers, then theaters, then small theaters, large clubs.
That is correct, and
So
the rise of the amphitheater has been really only the last 30 years, especially in North America. They exist elsewhere. I want to say we still have, if you're coming to San Francisco, if you're going to visit Keefy in San Francisco in
which
2 months, we do still have Bill Graham Auditorium,
that's
which
right.
is basically a civic center in my neighborhood, literally a
Yeah.
few blocks, not too far from my house.
See,
So
that's fucking see, and that's the thing is that those shows at those kind of venues were just magical, But like again, like what you were just talking about, like I looked at this Plant set list from 83. There's not a single Zeppelin song, and he played 16 songs. So that says a lot. But so the thing was by the time he got to Nonstop Go for that, we're talking what, 3 solo albums in, and he was like, yeah, I think I'm ready to do this. He's hitting the 80s. Zeppelin's having a resurgence, and maybe I have to give him some props for not jumping into Zeppelin, leaving, having gone right into his solo career, because it's almost like they gave them a little time to mourn, I think, to actually miss playing the songs, miss the material. And kudos to Plant, because like you said, like that could have just crashed and burned hardcore, pun intended. But but it's interesting because by the time he got to the Now and Zen tour, they had 6 different opening acts on this tour. They had Joan Jett and the Blackhearts, Stevie Ray Vaughan, King's X, Mission UK, the Georgia Satellites, and Cheap Trick.
Can anybody help out there help me understand why King's X didn't become like a Pearl Jam sized band after opening for Robert Plant,
AC/DC,
playing Woodstock 94, and releasing albums like Dogman and Gretchen Goes to Nebraska and Out of a Silent Planet, and not becoming a humongous household name other than racism and homophobia? Can anyone help me? Anyone, please.
You know what? We should do a chaser sometime on King's X, maybe.
Well, we did a whole series on it, but I'm happy to do a chaser with you on King's X anytime. I'm happy to redo any. I'm open to the fact that as opinionated as I am and as righteous as I sometimes come off, especially when paired with Nick Cameron, the two of us are like two fucking suns getting sucked into opposite ends of a fucking black hole. I could be wrong about everything. I definitely try to have a cultured, educated opinion about things. But I am also prone to being like, Lars Ulrich was the greatest drummer in the world for 10 minutes in 1988. You can't fuck with that. And people can fuck with that, by the way. So, like, Dave Weckl could fuck with that. So, like,
yeah.
Sometimes I don't know what the fuck I'm talking about. So, I think I do, but sometimes I don't.
But yet you do. You know, it's like, and if you're lucky, you meet guys like Nick and I who actually convince you that you know what you're talking about, because we do, even if we don't agree all the time. But so, and I guess one last piece before we go into the song by song breakdown, I had to talk about this, was the set list of the show. This is actually what I'm trying to see what show this was from. See, I was kind of ill prepared for this one. Let me see. Let's see. Okay, yeah. So this was this was one of the kind of like mid-tour shows, and it didn't change. The set list did not change. They would swap out a song or two every now and then, but they opened every night with Helen of Troy, and then they did Other Arms, Billy's Revenge, In the Evening, and then In the Mood, and then Black Country Woman, Ship of Fools.
Yeah, In the Evening and Black Country Woman. That's fucking rad.
Seriously, isn't that crazy?
In the Evening is a fucking absolute belter, man. Like, it's super underrated. People don't ever talk about it. It's a great song.
You should, yeah, and I'll probably link it in the description of this episode. A video from YouTube that's got an entire show, and it's fucking sick, dude. And then they did Ship of Fools, Dimples by John Lee Hooker. They did Trampled Underfoot, Heaven Knows, Misty Mountain Hop, and then the encore was Big Log, Tall Cool One, into Custard Pie. And then the final was Back in the USSR by the Beatles.
So this is the hey Ozzy. There he is. He looks all right over there.
Oh yeah.
He's doing a big dog stretch. Downward facing dog, literally.
And he just farted too. Whenever
awesome.
He's like me. No. Every time he stretches, he farts. You know,
pepperoni fart. Yeah, you can't trust a fart at this age. You might just shit the floor.
No.
I have.
But that is that's amazing.
This is
we all have.
You think I'm kidding, but anyway.
No, I know you're not, because
there's a box of Imodium within reach right now. Anyway, so listen, that's the first time he played any significant Led Zeppelin stuff with his solo band.
Oh yeah,
as a solo artist, and then he didn't again for ages until Page and Plant. And then after Page and Plant was completely done, he didn't do it again until the last few tours.
He started again with the first Alison Krauss album. They were doing all this kind of like woodsy folk versions of renditions of like Black Dog and shit, which was fucking phenomenal, which I loved. But so, okay. So, and obviously this is going to be the song by song, which surprisingly doesn't take a whole lot. The more exciting stuff, I think, is the build up to here, but this is where I think it gets interesting, is to talk about the song. So tell me about Heaven Knows.
Heaven Knows, incredible. Beautiful singing, great composing, very clever lyrics. I know that Plant is still very pretentious. So like there are times when he, as a writer, and a student of literature and a very pretentious person, sometimes myself, I wore a lot of capes, towels and blankets as capes as a child, as did you. A lot of moms knitting needles as a wand. You shall not pass. A wizard is never late. I did all those things. And so see the whites of their eyes, then shoot with all the romance of the Tonton Macoute. No one knows what the fuck that is, even in 1988, unless you are extremely well read and up on events of the world. And you had to go look it up, and there was no Wikipedia. Britannica,
Yeah.
T-O-T-O-U-T. How does he spell that? So
It's like
Heaven
that,
Knows
yeah.
is incredible, though. Beautiful song. And it is kind of Zeppelin-y. It feels like a late era Zeppelin song a little bit too, and I think that was on purpose by Johnstone and Boyle.
So that's what I had to actually. I love that we both hit on that, being the writers that we are. Is that the clever lyrics? Like, he loves to throw these things in that are just very. It's almost like it's pretentiously clever. Like, and like you want to roll your eyes, but then you have to just be like, that was fucking great. Like, that one line in the song where he says, you were pumping iron while I was pumping irony. Like, I roll mega, but then you listen to it in the context of that song and you're like, fucking brilliant. I thought it was a beautiful song. It's interesting too to me that it's the only song on the album that was not written by Plant. It was a sole, he was not involved in the writing aspect of that song. I don't know if it was purposeful or whatever, but
who's the guy, Crash Bandicoot or whatever, who wrote on this album? Crash Davis. Who's the guy? Nick would laugh at that more. He's the gamer of all the three of us.
Oh, what was his name? The guy that was the let me see, Chris Blackwell.
No, there's a Crash guy.
Oh, yes. Let me see. Where was that guy at?
He's in the songwriting credits. I'm sorry, I clicked off to something else.
Yeah, no, I'm gonna look that up. Oh, you got it? Okay, because I was trying
to see. Robert Crash.
Yes, Robert Crash. Okay, I see him right here. He was in charge of programming as far as a
so he's not a lyricist either.
No, he was just part of the like additional musicians list.
Oh, okay.
But Heaven Knows was written by David Barrett and Paul Johnstone.
Yeah.
And then Dance on My Own, which is the next tune.
Right.
Anyway, but I thought Heaven Knows was also kind of very dark and percussive, which I love that sound. It's very mood oriented. So incredible song. I think that's top notch.
Yeah, it's a banger right out the gate. Great. And really the best opening track of any Robert solo album.
Oh, it's so good.
Man, Nirvana is pretty great too, but yeah, this is a great way to start things.
All right, then we go on to Dance on My Own, which is a Plant, Johnstone, Robert Crash collaboration.
Solid. Good sing-along song, good chorus, got a oh, right? Like Banglesy, Walk Like an Egyptian, right before Walk Like an Egyptian came out. Robert, good voice, really in his middle range, very soulful and sultry. It's a panty dropper. I don't know what this song is about, but I guess it's about dancing on his own. But I think it's like, very Robert, just very purely Robert.
Yeah, and I love that too, because when I heard this, going back and listening to it, it's one of those songs where it's like the note that I made was like, I should hate it. Like, just fundamentally and like organically what it is. Like, I feel like by anybody else, I should hate it. But it was so Plant. Like, it was so Plant not being Zeppelin. Do you know what I mean? Like, and it was so, it's dancey, it's kind of poppy, but it was like, he wasn't trying to be hip or trying to be current. Like, it was very much, it feels very natural. And like, I don't love it, but I don't skip it. It's not a skipper to me. So I think it's solid. I mean, but it's also not forgettable, like it's weird. It's weird. And I think that's probably what Plant would want you to say. So what about
he would love that you thought it was weird.
Oh, that's what I'm saying. Like, yeah, he would just be like, yeah, tell me it's weird again. Yes, please.
Tell me again it's weird. I'm touching myself.
Call me weird. Call me weird.
I'm gonna touch myself.
I'm Robert Plant. I'm always coming.
Imagine how silky his shirts and blouses are, and like I would just use that to come into.
Dude,
fuck a cum sock, like Robert Plant's blousey shirt on the cover of
like blouses. Oh God, seriously. Yeah, I know. It's like he's always like,
Still doing the.
Hmm?
Does anybody remember laughter?
Did they
Fucking,
remember laughter?
he's still doing it. He's still doing it. He's still doing the pout. You can't be mad when everybody copies that pout when you did it to perfection.
Ah, man, that's yours, you know.
Yeah, yeah.
But so we have Tall Cool One, which I did not realize this. It went to number 25 on the Hot 100, and it was number one um on the modern records, the rock charts, and it actually charted higher than it did in the UK, which is
Because
super interesting.
people were excited for it. It kind of sounds like a Billy Joel song a little bit with the
Uh-huh.
very pronounced piano, boogie woogie piano.
Yep.
And then Robert singing high, which he hadn't done a lot of, except for in the little moments and choruses and little pre-guitar solo wails. He's singing in his upper register most of the song, and then he kind of dips back very playfully, beautifully constructed. Again, like maybe it doesn't hold up as well for me today, but when this came out, I was all about this fucking song, and as aforementioned, Ship of Fools. But this is a banger. Maybe it doesn't have as much strength today. Like, oh, if this came out today, you wouldn't like it. But like, for the time, it's pretty good.
You know, I think that the excitement of it, like you said, like when you're kids, when you're young, because like I said, this was 88. So yeah, I mean, being 15, 16, like I just remember hearing that song and just being like, how awesome is that? He's using samples of Led Zeppelin. But even now, like I listen to it, I go, this is just fun. Like it's goofy, it's like nonsensical, kind of like, I again, like a lot of Plant's writing, I don't really know a lot of times where it's going. Sometimes it's improper references to Lord of the Rings that make no sense at all. But it's like this is one of those songs where I feel like he wants people to have a conversation like we're having right now. Like, what the fuck is Tall Cool One? What does it mean? What is he saying? Where he's just probably like not saying anything. He's just saying it. But it's solid, it's great, it's a fun song, and it's actually a song that I wish that I could have actually gotten to hear live at some point, in my lifetime.
Noted. Me
And
too.
then let's see, the next one is The Way I Feel, which I have is that it kind of has like a Talking Heads vibe to me. Like
Yeah.
it was kind of hard to kind of put that feel on it, but if you listen to it, it starts off with that very kind of solid poppy drum, that like it's very tight sounding, and then it's got this kind of like droning bass that goes under it. Like it totally could have been a Talking Heads kind of thing, and it's got a ton of ear candy. All the songs up to this point do, but man, for some reason, this song, put your fucking headphones on and listen to this song, and just it'll take you someplace. And I love the fact that he did not let that go, but he took that aspect of the 80s with ear candy, and instead of saturating it, it's almost like he channeled Page enough, or Johnstone did, to work with him to say like, I want a lot of shit, but it needs to be like sporadically placed and like not predictable. So this is a beautiful sounding song, and it's dark, and but yeah, I love it, and great guitar work from Doug Boyle on this one too.
Yeah, agreed. And again, Doug trying not to be Jimmy Page, not doing Jimmy Pageisms, just playing solid, good rock guitar. I like the dark. There's a very moody and dark song. There's like a lot of Yamaha DX7 synth stuff happening in here that I was a complete cheeseball for, and I still am when band like Ghost does it, and I love when bands do that, and Unto Others, a little gothy, moody.
Mm-hmm.
Plant. If Plant was the Cure, Plant was fronting the Cure, this would be a Cure song.
It's
Except
so
it couldn't be
true.
because it would be Plant, not Rock. The other Robert that I love.
But yeah, and I did love the fact that he did use the technology and the overall sound of the time to explore going a little darker, as opposed to like trying to pop it up like pop music, like, because this actually really, I think you said, I didn't even think too much about it, but it does almost have kind of a gothic kind of undertone to it, where, music vocally, not so much, but musically, like it really seems to channel that kind of dark gothic kind of vibe to it. And but I thought it's a great. I think it's just another great song that, like, and reviewing this album for this, it made me realize how much I loved some of these songs, but I just forgot how much I loved them.
Fair enough. What's the Peter Gabriel record that's huge at this time?
Was it so?
Yeah. So
Yeah,
Sledgehammer, Red
yeah,
Rain,
yeah, yeah,
Don't
yeah.
Give Up.
Mm-hmm.
AB this song with like big time and how
Yes.
pop, hugely pop sensible. And for Gabriel, who was so dark and mysterious and moody his whole career, and then he has like these triumphant, magical songs in the '80s that U2 wishes they could fucking write, but they suck. A Hill I Will Die On, not a good band. U2.
No, you know what? I wish that they
Stop
would have
being
just
good
heard.
after With or Without You, and even that record, whatever.
You know what, dude? I wish Bono would have just heard Salisbury Hill and just went back to washing dishes or something.
Maybe. But anyway, but AB, that song and Big Time or Sledgehammer, and look at the differences. And like Peter is embracing this pop wonder. Steve Winwood stuff also at this time is very joyous and vibrant. And Robert is almost like, I'm a little sad and dark. I love it. I actually really love it.
It was interesting though, because I to kind of sidebar on that, what you were just talking about was that it was, again, being our age, like, you know, when I heard Steve Winwood, when I heard Peter Gabriel, you know, aside from Plant, because I knew about Zeppelin, you know, I didn't know anything about Genesis, and I didn't really know anything about Traffic or even care to know, because I had no idea who they were. So to me, you know, Steve Winwood was back in the high life and Peter Gabriel was Sledgehammer. But then, like, you go back and you find out that these guys were just like very rooted, already extremely established artists, but they were kind of shooting for that commercial viability, that commercial success, where I feel like Plant almost just kind of, and I don't mean necessarily think it was cocky, but I think Plant was just more like, I'm Robert Plant. I don't have to try to be famous. I'm just going to be famous. So I'm going to do whatever the fuck I want. And at any point in time this stops working, I'll just bust out a Zeppelin or two, you know? And so, but it worked in his favor, because I felt like he became a very prolific solo artist in his own right, to the point where I knew people that didn't even know Robert Plant or know Zeppelin aside from Robert Plant solo, you know, because they might have just been more of a casual music listener, you know, like they were more into the fact that Plant was doing solo than they were going back to listen to Led Zeppelin. Yeah, so I think that's kind of a hard feat to have, or to do. But and then I guess let's see. So we're halfway into the album at this point. We're Helen of Troy. It's the one song on the album that sounds like it could be a Zeppelin song.
100% pure Zepp vibes. The right, like 5 minutes, same kind of chorus bridge type of stuff, pre-chorus, post-chorus, good lyrics.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, they loved the song. Obviously, it was a setlist fixture at this point.
Oh, God, it was an opening. They opened the show with this every night.
Yeah, that's wild, because I don't think of it as like one of the top 4 songs of the record, but here we are.
And it's interesting because listening back to it, it does give me an idea of thinking, would this have been where Zeppelin might have kind of gone had they been a band that you know, didn't lose Bonham and that carried through into the 70s, going into the 80s, into the mid 80s, you know, like, could this have been more of like what we would have heard from Led Zeppelin in 1988 if they had existed? So it's kind of a fun fantasy to have, you know, when when listening to this, and it's definitely got that kind of a fusion feel to it. If you were talking about Pat Metheny earlier, like, it kind of has that jazz fusion guitar tone to it that I just thought was great, and a killer chorus, like a chorus that soars, you know, like, just love it.
Yeah, good song, good. Side, you know, like a very consistent record to have like very strong songs on side 2, and still the best to come.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, all right, so then moving on, we had Billy's Revenge, which I wrote here. this you can tell when my edibles start to kick in, is that my handwriting gets less legible. It's like I stop caring. Um, it's a cool shuffle that seems to channel the kind of 50s almost doo-wop vibe that Plant has never been ashamed to say was a huge influence on him. Which you hear that kind of shuffle to it, and he gets to kind of do that 50s doo-wop vocal kind of.
He loves it. He loves this stuff. This has always been a part of his makeup in and out of Zeppelin, and more so now, right?
Oh
That he's
yeah,
doing this
yeah.
Americana folk stuff, Band of Joy, Redux, and things like that. He loves this kind of song. I think it's a solid song. I wouldn't throw it off the island, but is it one of my favorites? I can skip it, but it's not bad. It's just good. You know, it's solid.
I totally agree. And another thing that I think of too is that it also kind of reminds me a little bit of like that kind of Honey Drippers thing he was going into when he was doing the Rockin' at Midnight and Sea of Love and all this shit. Like it almost sounds like it could be a cover if we didn't know better, you know. But again, like you said, I feel like I feel like it's kind of a placeholder. I don't think it's a throwaway, but it's one of the songs that I don't know that I would skip, but I would probably go take a leak during, you know, and get a drink and then come back. You know what I mean? And just be like, oh,
Beer
you're still
break.
oh, you're still there, Billy's Revenge. Okay, let's wrap this up so we can get into Ship of Fools. You like that segue, Riley? That is Ship of Fools, man. Like I would love to hear from anybody who is a Zeppelin fan or a Plant fan that would not say that this is up there with his like most shining moments, whether it be Zeppelin or not. Like, I mean, I would even go as far as to say probably as far as Zeppelin all across the board in this, that it's in my top 5 favorite vocal moments of his.
Agreed completely. This is his best solo work, singular song. Again, I said before, best album. And more like this, please, if you could. This song's incredible. No, I mean, like, this is a 1 in a million incredible song. Everything about it. Like, I still to this day get chills and bug out when I hear that guitar riff, like that beautifully played thing. Doug, man, shout to tip of the cap to Doug.
Oh, he
You
was.
got to play with Robert Plant, who's only played with the best people ever, and used to get his albums co-produced by Phil Collins. Like hangs out with like royalty, and
Yeah.
you're on in his band. Just no, don't mind me. I'm over here.
Yeah,
Andre
yeah.
Segovia, this motherfucker.
He was
Whew.
like, you know, and it's interesting because I did want to ask you about because we talked about this song. And I'm sure it's probably one of the more heavily talked about songs about on the album, which I'd love to dive into more and find out what other people think. But like for me, it's like a hit of nostalgia, but that it's not wrapped in anything that you remember. I know that sounds super weird, but it's like it doesn't hold a memory, it holds a feeling for me. And like it's the same feeling that I had when I first heard it, that when I listened to it this morning in my earphone in my headphones, and I just like the hairs on my arms stand up, and it's so subtle and sparse. Like there's not a lot going on, but god damn, dude, it is like the perfect amount of everything and nothing all together. And it hits me massively every time.
Right on. This kind of takes me back to my music school years. There's a thing that I was taught, which is like great classical music does this, and certain rock bands can do this, not irrespective of tempo, key change, or volume. If you can make a song lift the listener emotionally over the course of the song with music, not volume, not speed and tempo, not riffs, just emotional lifting through the chord changes, through the vocals, through the melodies. You have made something timeless. And the great ones do it. Mozart and Beethoven and Berlioz and Dvorak and people like that. And Zeppelin, Jimmy Page, right? And Pink Floyd and Tool. So, like, to me, in my opinion, this is one of those songs that just lifts you emotionally, transports you, takes you away, creates a painting in your mind of what the music is trying to tell you even if you didn't, if it was Anthony Kiedis singing this cover as a cover with his butchering fucking style, can't fucking mumble mouth there, get the cocks out of your mouth and sing. You know, he's too busy coming to get the dicks out of his mouth, but or the needles out of his arms. But just like, yeah, this song is unbelievable. Like it's unbelievable and also relevant still. Like what he's talking about in this song is somehow vague and also eternal. How do you do that? How do you do that with lyrics? How are you such a great storyteller after all this time? Because he's lived a life already at this time. 40-year-old Robert Plant down here, as opposed to 75-year-old Robert Plant now, right? Or 70-year-old, because he's a little younger than everybody else, right? Page is 82, right? Like he's seen some shit, and this song is evidence. Whatever he does with it, right? So for real, beautiful.
I just think lyrically too, it's like, again, like you said, like, and I don't know why it is, and I don't know, maybe this happens to you sometimes, is that like, and I can't explain why, but sometimes when you look at someone or you even know someone for what they are, who they are, what they've played, you have a hard time believing sometimes that they are capable of writing something or capable of playing something, because you just see them for a certain thing, right? Like when I heard these lyrics, I was just like, only Robert Plant could have written this. Do you know what I mean? Like it was, because I feel like it was up to this point, it was so established that Plant was a great writer that, like, I mean, even, you know, we were talking about delivery. Like I think writing wise, this is some of his best work. I mean, hands down.
Agreed.
All right, so then we go into the second to last tune, which is Why. And all I have is another Talking Heads jam. But why? Why?
Why indeed? You know, Robert has always had these kind of songs as a solo artist where he kind of fools around with, let me try something I've never tried before. And our Robert Crash co-wrote this on, you know, it's programmed. You can hear some synthy stuff going on here. This is a decent track. This is decent. I think I prefer the next two, but like, or the next one plus the bonus, if you count. I had the CD version, so I had the bonus.
Oh, gotcha. So you had the bonus, right? Okay.
Yeah. When I finally did get my own copy of it, it was on CD. So I actually like that. And I think that's a cover, actually, that last track.
The Walking Towards Paradise.
Yeah, it's actually like a rockabilly cover, which I love and kind of bookends the record. But yeah, so why is okay. I don't. Yeah.
I also feel like that coming out of Ship of Fools, like you could have done anything you fucking wanted, and I would have forgot it anyway, you know. So it's kind of, I'll be honest, sequencing wise, it was so perfect to put a song like this after Ship of Fools, because it's like, okay, let's put the least good song on this entire album after the singular best song on the record, so no one will remember that I had a song that was this marginal. You know, like
I struggle to remember the song Why when I think of Ship of Fools. It's fair point, my friend.
And then closing out, we had another, what I thought could have been another Zeppelin tune that was White, Clean, and Neat. It was a total different modernized sound spin on the blues influence that fueled Zeppelin. And the chorus is just so jarring though, because it does this weird it breaks up the initial vibe of the song, like you're not expecting it, and then all of a sudden it comes back into something completely different. Like this could have been a Zeppelin tune, and I love it. Like to me, this feels like the kind of like the descent. Like, you know, you've been riding high this whole time. Ship of Fools, this took you to the top of the fucking mountain. You know, why is you waiting for the fucking skybox, and then all of a sudden you get in the fucking, and you just are descending slowly back down to the ground. Like, I thought it was a perfect closer. I mean, not one of my favorite songs, but I actually think that this song was pretty important to this album to kind of square it out.
I love, by the way, how your dog just let himself out of the room. It's amazing.
He just fucking
he's so skilled. He's like, peace, bro. You're boring me with this shit. Why did Robert have why after Ship of Fools? I'm out.
He's like, I got a question for you. Why is there no food in my fucking bowl?
That's every dog and cat ever. Is it time? I'm hungry. Is it time to eat? I'm hungry. Is it time to eat? White Cleaning needs a banger. It's a bop. If you made it a little heavier, it could have been on Zeppelin 2.
Mhm.
It's that kind of shuffle, that boogie, Robert doing what he loves, and the low tones and a little bit of just a tiny bit of like purposeful phrasing and grit, not
Yeah.
like a grimy grit, but just a little hint of it in his voice, like that sexual aggression that he has
Yeah.
with consent, but the sexual aggression that Robert always just
Exactly.
exudes and oozes sex appeal. You could just see him, you know, just strutting around the stage singing this
Mhm.
from his diaphragm with force, and just everybody dropping panties in the whole place. Just whoop, wet. Everybody wet.
Not
Men
a
and women.
like
They
Spinal
and them.
Tap said, not a dry seat in the house.
Nope. Not a dry seat in the house. Good way to end
Dude,
the record. And then I always like that cover. I like that little rock cover
the little
because
kind of like I need to give that another listen because I only ever had the vinyl, so I
yeah,
didn't get the whole.
I can't afford the vinyl. I think, like you can find this on vinyl. If you try to get it new, it's quite pricey, and I'm not sure
Mhm.
why, because maybe it hasn't been reissued in a while. Nick is the Discogs expert, and I am not on our thruple. So,
Yeah, we
and I
fall on
haven't
him for
bothered to
that.
look. But I looked on Amazon and I was like, nope, not going to pay $60 for this. That's too pricey for me. But like, if I find it for $1 and it's not scratched to shit, I might get it, or $10. I don't need this record.
Yeah.
Two fun things. I have the tour book from this tour, even though I didn't go to the tour because
No.
Ozzy is back. I collect like tour programs that they don't make anymore, really,
Oh,
but I buy them.
man.
And even the shows I haven't been to, if I'm curious, I just
Yeah.
like having. It's just ephemera that I like having. The second thing is I was in my favorite local record store that perhaps I will take you to when you come visit,
Oh,
um,
please do.
which
Yeah.
is a cooperative record store called Thrill House Records in the Mission District. Also, a place for good food in that area.
Oh.
And the home of the Mission Burrito, perhaps the best burrito in California and America. We'll see. So up for debate. Depends on how much you like, what you like in your burritos. They come like this giant, like a huge tube sock filled with all of great white sticks. And but I was in the record store not too long ago, and not really there to buy anything, just to window shop. And I
Yeah.
found something, and I thought of this. I knew this series was coming because we've been talking about this for months.
Hmm.
And I thought of you, and I got this thing, and I'm going to send this to you. This is not a magazine from this era of the band, but this is a Rip magazine with Robert Plant on the cover
Oh, dude,
talking about Manic Nirvana in 1990. And I
oh
saw
my
this
God,
and I
I
was like,
love that.
Don needs to own this. And I'm
Oh
sure I had
man.
this when it came out brand new. It's August 1990, so I'm about to start community college. I'm a high school graduate. Amoeba actually is where I bought this from, but sorry, it was
Oh
like
man, that's
in a Racks
beautiful.
and Amoeba. But I was an Amoeba to buy something that was a different day. But yeah, the sharper image of Lita Ford, terrible headline for the cover. Robert Plant rocks hard again.
Again.
Hard. What really went on during the year's most scandalous tour, Aerosmith and Skid Row, with Sebastian Bach and Steven Tyler looking like they were about to French kiss.
I feel like that
Um,
was like not the year's most scandalous tour, but like it checks, I guess. Yeah. Oh,
Axl Rose.
that was the tour where Bach threw the bottle. That was the bottle incident tour.
Yeah, that's
Okay.
correct.
Yeah.
Here's some more. Hold on. Axl Rose ties the knot. Exclusive photo on page 80. Stephanie Seymour,
Stephanie Seymour. Yeah.
Jane Seymour's daughter. That was ill fated. Uh, or is that Erin Everly?
Aaron
Maybe that's
Everly was the Don Everly's
so that's because
kid.
she's Sweet
Yeah.
Child of Mine is about her. So maybe it's her first,
Yeah.
and then later is Stephanie.
Yeah.
Win a
That makes
trip to
sense.
Castle Donington. Details inside Rip, an American magazine sending people to England for a metal festival. That's fucking sick. I love this magazine more than you can know.
So that
This
was the year that was the big year that a lot of the modern hard rock metal bands were dominating Donington because that was like, God, who was that the year? It was like London Choir Boys, Poison, Queensryche. I forgot who else was on there, but like it was a big star-studded thing, like where all the bands that were like on that bill were like hitting hard at the moment.
interesting. Uh, Also, plus Dio, Trouble, Harlow, And damn Yankees.
Harlow. God, who?
I don't know what Harlow is. Who Harlow is?
Someone who had evidently someone who had really good PR because they got
Yeah.
mentioned on the cover.
And
So.
also an awesome Flotsam and Jetsam contest, which I would have entered because I love Flotsam and Jetsam. And on the back is a full page ad, a shot to the body, straight to the heart. Trickster.
Oh no.
New Jersey. Give
Oh,
it to me good.
God,
Features Give It to Me Good, Line of Fire, and Surrender, which I'm assuming is a cover.
Either that or it's a really terrible ballad. I'm sure.
MCA, Matt, and like your very typical 80s back cover thing. So this thing is coming to you along
So
with your
cool.
shark that I finally have and a few other things. So I'm going to send you a little care package in the next few weeks, probably early July, to be honest.
So those of you who are watching this, we love to do shit like this with each other. We send each other gifts when we can because we're just a bunch of thoughtful fucks and we love each other and we show it materialistically, which is fantastic.
Agreed.
But I love that, Keefy. That was so awesome, man.
I've been saving that for months.
So
months and months. I've been waiting to give this to you and tell you about it. So I'm so excited. This is like the culmination of a very long emotional build.
Yes, dude. Well,
I
love that.
And then I climaxed.
Well, yeah, and now it's time to go have a cigarette in the shower. I mean, not that I smoke, but yeah, that's like
warm washcloth,
There you go. Warm washcloth. Get some hand soap on it.
Hose myself down.
Cool. Well, Keefy, thank you so much for hopping in here, man, and doing this. This was a blast, man. I loved doing this.
Thank you for having me, and this was amazing. And I'm again just the British say chuffed. I'm just honored and appreciative that you would have anything to do with me, let alone have me do this with you. I love this fucking record more than most people, probably more than Robert does looking back on it. And just thanks, man. I'm down to do another one again soon, and there'll be more adventures for us with both Glacially Musical and Ghost Cult as well.
That's awesome, man. Well, folks, thank y'all for listening. This is Keefy, my boy. You can check him out over at ghostcultmag.com. He is also a co-host with me at the Glacially Musical Pouredcast, which has a link down there. Nick, the pull to our thruple is or should he be the thruh to the thruple? I don't know. He can be whatever he wants. He'll complain about it anyway. But Nick, we love you. Wish you could have been here, but thank you guys for always being incredible. And for those of you listening and watching, I hope you enjoyed it. Click on all the links down below that'll take you to everybody's respective blogs and podcasts. There'll also be some links in there to get you some cool shit, like some Mylar covers to go inside of your records and protect them nicely. And there's also going to be a link to a live performance of Plant doing this show in full on tour. So until next time, thank you guys so much for hanging out with me and my guests and for on and off the records. And we will be back again soon with another record. And if you're watching and you're listening and you have a record that you love, send it on over. And if it's something that we think is worthy, we'll give it a listen and maybe we'll even talk about it. So, but in the meantime, that's it. Thank you all so much. Enjoy, be good to yourselves and each other, and good night.
A man and his final, and listening to him and his friends talk about him. There's nothing sexier. It's a badass podcast called